Grim.
Absolutely grim. All right, we are 15 seconds from takeoff. Welcome everyone, and thanks again for joining us for another episode of The Tripod, where we break down every single NFL game every week from a punting perspective. It's been a relatively rocky start to the season for us, so we're mixing things up today. We're doing a Friday pod instead of the Saturday, hoping that we can turn our fortunes around. I know we've been copping some shit online for our picks, but let me just put it in perspective for you guys. I know we haven't been doing that great on our singles. We're down about 23 units for the season, but we're up 29 units on multi. So if you've been following everything religiously, you wouldn't have done too bad. Jacob, is Friday going to turn things around for us? A little bit of a mix-up in start times.
Yeah, well, you look at Atlanta Falcons, they've made a change. They flipped the wide receiver coach, became the DB's coach, and it's worked for them. We got the tickets to, a Doom and Race Day tomorrow. We were able to give a few away in the group, so that's the actual reason we're changing it. But we'll see how this goes. And yeah, with our record, you can't hide from it. It's our worst season in tipping any sport. And yeah, down 20 units, it's the one time you could actually say, if you'd bet against our best bets, you'd actually would have made money. Which is shocking. And as I say, every Monday, I apologise when we get a game wrong, but I wake up at 3 a.m. every Monday. I check all the closing lines across the, American bookies. We're beating the closing number on lines and totals
Nearly
in the vast majority.
Nearly
We're sitting there very early on a Monday morning saying we've got some good plays here, and watching it unfold is not going our way. So we believe in the process. Look, we can't win it all back in 1 week. We're not trying to do that. If it's a losing season, it's a losing season, but we really have faith in the picks we're giving out each and every week. And on top of that, while we've massively underachieved on the best bets, we have massively overachieved on the multis, gone plus 29 units. And I think almost all of those winners are big same game multis. So it's how come we can pick multiple legs within a game, but we can't actually win the majority of our best bets? And today was a similar story. 3 best bets, 1 win, 1 loss, and 1 push when we liked Houston and they get the win. But hey, I think that the only way is up. That's the good thing.
And a last-second field goal from flipping a best bet winner into a loser into a winner. A last-second first-half field goal from flipping that same game multi from a loser into a winner. So we keep going. Like you said, Jacob, you're absolutely right. If we're beating the closing number, we're doing well. I know it's hard for people to wrap their heads around that after a few losing weeks in a row, but trust the process, like Philly, and we'll get there. First up, Panthers plus 9.5 at the Saints. 47 points is the total. Don't have a huge lean on the side for this one. I do think the Saints will get the win, and they are rightfully favoured by close to double digits. I think that line is ticking up to about 10 now. But the funny thing about the Saints is I know a lot of people think of them of years past where they, were just airing the ball out, had terrible defense, threw the ball all the time, and they were such an over team. That's not the Saints team of now. They've got Kamara there. They've got Latavius Murray there just rushing the ball, and they rush like a top 6 team in terms of percentage plays of rushes in the league. So the bad thing for the Panthers here is that they have the worst rush defense in the NFL. So I think the Saints are going to be able to run on them. The Saints will get their points, but I think that'll chew up some of the clock. I don't think that Kyle Allen's going to be able to score too many points on this Saints team. I think the Saints get a comfortable victory here and just do enough to get the win.
It's a very important game for both teams, really, because the Saints firmly have their eyes on, a top seed, at least a top 2 seed, to have a real run at making the Super Bowl. And they're as good as anyone, and they can.
100%.
And it is their defense that leads the way as well. They like to run the ball. They also play really good defense. We saw that with all the wins they got without Breeze. The Panthers, well, this is their last chance. They're probably a wild card's out of reach because it's very tough in the NFC. But after a very bad loss last week, they actually need to pull an upset here. If they're going to do that, it's not going to be through Allen. I think we've seen, at first it was that new car thing and Cam Newton was playing so badly and playing hurt that Allen looked like the answer, but he's not a long-term viable QB there. The only chance is Christian McCaffrey helping them extend drives and their defense playing well, and that's why I think we like the under in this game.
Yeah, 100%. One other thing I will add, the Panthers are 4-6 this season. Every single game that they have won, they've led from start to finish. So you know that Kyle Allen cannot chase points. So the Panthers are going to make a point of at least staying close, and their defense needs to step up, especially early on in this one to keep this one relatively close. We've just got one best bet on the game. We are taking the under 48 points. You'll find that one on Unibet at $1.80. Next up, the Broncos, plus 3.5 points at the Buffalo Bills. 37.5 points is the total. The Bills have probably been one of the more surprising teams this year. What are they now? Are they 7-3, which is absolutely crazy. And everyone kind of is pointing towards their schedule being relatively weak, which, it hasn't been the hardest schedule, but you can only beat the teams in front of you. And I do think that the Bills are an above average team, even though a lot of people don't. The Broncos, that is just an absolute dream crusher. I know that they didn't have any plans of playing playoffs this year, but you put your absolute all into that one against the Vikings. You're up big, and then you lose the fourth quarter 20-0. I think this is a massive letdown spot for the Broncos. Plus, you have to travel on the road into pretty bad conditions there in Buffalo. Josh Allen is playing better. I think this Bills team, despite it probably being a square pick, gets the win and covers the line in this one.
Yeah, it's like I think Bills 7-3 and Denver 3-7, and Denver's had some brutal losses, like multiple games lost, on the final play or final field goal made or missed.
And when that gets to the end of the season, it's no longer like if you have a few close losses at the start of the season, you can say, oh, this team's probably a little bit underrated. But once it gets to the end of the season, you're completely out of it. That gets demoralizing after a little while.
Yeah, they are underrated in the sense that they're probably better than your average 3-7 team. And a lot of people will probably make a case that they're as good as the Bills, but it's just they've played tougher teams and they've, had all those close losses. But to your point, it's like the Bills team's full of enthusiasm. Like, they've got a good coach. They're in playoff position, playing at home in front of, an excited crowd. That's got to count for something, as opposed to a Denver team that is putting in the effort, not getting any reward. And to blow a 20-0 halftime lead last week, how do you, pick yourself up and apply yourself at 100%? And I know that they outperformed what we expected last week, like going into Minnesota, building that lead. We said that this, Allen, the third QB in the NFL named Allen.
True.
If, it was his first road start, we didn't think he'd go well against the Vikings. I actually applaud their game plan. They came out aggressive. They threw the ball deep. They went for it on fourth down. If you're a big underdog, that's a great mentality. And they took risks and they paid off. What happens if you take big risks in a hostile environment and you don't get them all to break your way? And that's what could happen in this one. Buffalo Bills,
and that Buffalo
good defense.
pasty is legit.
Yeah, that's a tough one for Brandon Allen, right? To go against.
Brandon Allen. Yeah.
Brandon Allen to go. Yeah, we got the Allen Bowl. So I like the Bills in this one.
Yeah, we got two best bets so far. We're taking the Bills laying 2.5 points in the first half. That one's $1.87 on Unibet. We're also going to take the Bills to score over 20.5 points. That one is $1.97 also on Unibet. Moving on to a meaningless game, we've got the Lions laying 3.5 points at the Redskins. 41 points is the total. The Lions didn't look terrible. Driscoll didn't look horrible last week. What did he put up? 27 points or something against the Cowboys. The Lions looked like they could really move the ball in that one against that Cowboys D, which is, granted, below average, but even so, he stepped in well there for Matt Stafford, that's for sure. The Skins, on the other hand, still look pretty bad. I know they scored 20 points in a loss to the Jets, but I think a couple of those were late touchdowns in the fourth quarter. I just don't know what to do with this game. If I had to lean aside, I'd probably lean towards the over. It's a low total with two teams with bad defenses in a meaningless game. So that's the way that I would probably lean. But in terms of the side, I just don't know if I want to lay 3.5 points on the road. And I don't know if I can play the Redskins at home catching points when they kind of have an incentive to lose.
Yeah, and I pushed back on liking the over. Yes, it's a low total, but the Redskins' defense isn't that bad. I think they just give up a fair few points because their offense is so bad, so they're put in bad field position. The other team is always on the field. So I think they're okay. And also, it's an outdoor game. Could be poor weather from what I'm hearing. And you just can't trust Haskins to put up points. He could potentially be the worst starting QB in the NFL. That could be a first-round pick that has failed. When you listen to anyone talking about how he's played, they're not seeing any signs of promise that he's improving. So that's also keeps me off playing the Redskins, because at first I'm looking at them going catching 3.5 at home and, keen to get a win. But you respect the Lions, the way that they played last week. I was surprised actually how well they moved the ball with Driscoll in there. Driscoll's a guy who is a bit of a dual threat. He can actually pick up some first downs with his legs and stuff. I don't really want to lay the points with them. They've got a terrible defense too. So, we don't have a play on this game.
don't have a play on the game, we'll move along to the Dolphins plus 10.5 points at the Cleveland Browns. 45 points is the total. Well, the Dolphins had been playing better of late. Lost against the Bills last week. But the Browns, on the other hand, they're 4-6, I think, now. But they have one of the easiest schedules on the way home. They could technically make the playoffs. So I think they're definitely going to win this one. They've won 2 on the trot against good defenses, so I think their stats are a little bit suppressed, especially recent stats, because they've played the Bills defense and then the Steelers defense, and now you come up against the Dolphins defense, which is absolutely horrendous. On top of that, you've got Myles Garrett. Obviously, you saw every single clip, every single Facebook page was showing that clip of Myles Garrett. He is suspended. That suspension was upheld, so he's not going to be there. That's going to hurt the Browns defense as well. We know that Fitzpatrick loves to sling it round, and I think the Browns, as you said, or you mentioned to me earlier, Jacob, they're a confidence team as well. When they get up, if they get up 10 points in this one, they're not like the Patriots that'll just like wind down the clock and win this one. I think the Browns, they're just going to keep trying to pile the points on, get some confidence here. So I think both teams in this one will be able to put on some points.
Yeah, the Browns are so crazy because if they had pulled that, well, they pulled the win on Thursday Night Football. That's a nationally televised game. Yeah. You beat a respected team in Pittsburgh. I think they pulled the win the week before. That was the game. They beat the Bills, who's a team in playoff position. Yep. You obviously kind of know you're going to beat the Dolphins at home. Then next thing you know, you're 6-6. In the AFC, 9 wins probably gets into the playoffs. 9 wins, I think a wildcard team will finish with 9 wins. So
for sure,
it would have been in front of them. And while it still is, because they still can finish the season, 5-1. Losing Myles Garrett is going to make it so much harder. He's their best defensive player. You can't understate that loss. Now, it probably doesn't hurt him in this game, although Fitzpatrick will be thankful that he's not going to be chasing after his ass, back there. So I think Dolphins are a kind of side that we've seen them do like fake punts and go for it on 4th down, and be a little bit aggressive as a double-digit underdog, which you don't mind for overs. Because, if you're at midfield and you want the overs, you want the team that's got the ball to go for it, and it's either 100%. An attacking drive or it's instantly a flipped field to the other team. You don't want punts and things like that. That's what I like. And for the Browns, I think, Odell Beckham's been having a little cry and stuff. If they get a little bit of a lead, a smart team like the Patriots says, we're going to win this game. I don't want to show anything on film that I don't need to. A dumb team like the Browns says, we haven't flogged many teams. Let's, ramp it up. Let's get a touchdown to Odell.
They'll pull like trick plays and shit, like Odell throwing TD.
Let's build up, Baker's confidence. Let's show everyone what we're about. And they may, add that extra score they don't need. So for those reasons, I think the over is a sound play in this one.
Yes, indeed. And we've got 3 plays on the over for now. We're taking the Browns team total over 27.5 points. That one's $1.85 on Ladbrokes and on Neds. We're going to take the Dolphins team total over 16.5. That's $1.82 on Sportsbet. We're just going to take over 44 flat for the game. That is $1.81 on Unibet. Moving on to the Giants, plus 6 points at the Bears. Total is 40 points. Well, these are 2 teams that will not be making the playoffs. And, I mean, the thing with, like I kind of said, and you kind of talked me out of it, Jacob, in the Washington game with the weather. But when you have 2 bad teams, similar to NRL, 2 bad teams playing with no hope of the playoffs, generally they don't play as tough on defense, and generally you do look towards overs in those sorts of games. I know the Giants coming off the bye here, nothing to play for, obviously, but I think the Giants' stats are suppressed, as we've said before, because they've had a lot of injuries this year to multiple receivers. So their offensive stats are a little bit suppressed, but now they're pretty much back fully healthy, got the full complement back. On the other hand, the Bears have just been absolutely woeful, but they played the Rams, and I know that everyone will heap shit on the Bears from last week. They benched Trubisky, they claim a hip pointer injury. He seems to be good to go for this one. I think they legitimately might have just pulled him because he was horrific last week. But let's not forget, that Rams defense is a top 5 defense in the league. This Giants defense is a bottom 5 defense in the league. So I think Mitch Trubisky and the Bears will be able to get theirs in this one at a low total of 40. I think not a shootout, but we should be able to get over 40 points here.
Yeah, this total's really low because the Bears are such an under team. Horrendous offense and really good defense. But the thing about that defense is I question, are they going to bring it max this week after just so many letdowns that they have played well and the offense lets them down? And now that there's really no hope of making the playoffs, there's a question mark really on how well even Chicago's defense will play.
Yep.
And even if they play great, they're the kind of defense that can get you those turnovers that lead to points. So they can actually be the kind of defense that thinks we actually got to score when we get on the field, because that's how crappy our QB is. And the fact that they're actually still a solid home favorite here, it actually means that, again, it could be an opportunity where if Mitch is actually throwing the ball around, and against the Giants, he actually may be able to complete some passes and move the ball on some drives.
Should be able
They
to.
may be inclined to actually let him keep doing that, because you need to, you've got this.
You got to
this
see
marriage.
what you got.
Yeah, you've got this marriage here of Nagy and Trubisky, and you've got to kind of know, is it going to work, or do you need, and if they want to keep their positions and they're both in a lot of jeopardy, they need to show success. So they kind of need to put up a few points to silence the critics. But I know I said that last week too, but it's a bit easier to put up points against the Giants, as you said, than the Rams. And for the Giants, I see them as an over team. I like the offense. Like, you had a banged up Barkley, you've had like Tate suspended, Sterling Shepard was injured, Ingram was injured, right? And Daniel Jones obviously been an upgrade since he overtook from Eli, and he's going to improve through the weeks. And I think a rookie QB off a bye has got to be a good thing too. And they're under pressure to get results. So their defense is woeful. So why have I got a team that's got an okay offense, a bad defense, playing in a game with such a low total? I've got to look to the over.
Yeah, 100%. We've got a couple of plays for now. We're taking the over 39.5 points for the game. That one's $1.84 on Unibet. And staying on Unibet, we're going to take over 19.5 points in the first half. That one is $1.80. Moving on to a game, I really like this one actually. Raiders laying 3 points at the New York Jets. 46 points is the total. 3 reasons I like this one. You've got, firstly, the long flight. Probably the longest flight that you can make, actually, going from Oakland to New York, all the way across country. Plus, this is an early start time game. Generally, West Coast teams traveling East Coast struggle, not only with the distance of the flight, but also with the time difference there. The Jets match up actually quite well with this Raiders team. The Raiders team has a pretty bad defense, actually. They're very much an over team. Bad defense, good offense. But they do like to feed Josh Jacobs, and certainly have been trying to do that a bit more recently. But the Jets are actually, surprisingly enough, DVOA-wise, the number 2 ranked rush defense in the NFL. So I think they will be able to stop Josh Jacobs. So it's a good matchup there. Also, just the weather. It's going to be pretty cold. We're getting to that time in America where it is getting a little bit chillier. The Raiders have been at home for the last 3 weeks, or the last 3 games, and now they have to travel across country to way different weather conditions. It's going to be, the difference in temperature is going to be massive for them. So it's going to be a hard adjustment there. So the Jets at home, I know, with obviously not much to play for here, but I think after the win last week, a little bit of confidence, I think that they could cause the outright upset here.
And just to add to the point, the reason you said that West Coast teams can play badly in an early start on the East Coast, it's that body clock thing. That game kicks off for them, it's 10, and they're used to playing always, on Sunday afternoon. That's quite early by the time they wake up and do all their preparation to be firing. And it's been proven. In fact, there were syndicates back in the early 2000s that were purely without knowing anything about football, but they had like sleep experts and stuff. They found this trend and they were just betting it blindly, West Coast teams playing East Coast early, and they were winning money. It's now kind of known, so it's kind of built into the line, but still, it doesn't hurt to have a little factor in your favour. And Oakland have played a lot of close games too. I think that does wear you out after a while, that you've had to go down to the wire. There was a game where they had to survive a goal line stand against the Lions. Even last week, the Bengals had the ball down a touchdown late. So I wonder if they get worn out. The Jets, it's another team, no chance really of making the playoffs, although I think Sam Darnold said we still can. Hey, at least he's believing they can. But Darnold and Gase, they've copped a lot of criticism. They're under what would you say, magnifying glass? Microscope.
There you go.
Is the right term in New York. It helps to win a couple games in a row. I like the fact we're getting +3 at home with the Jets.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or did we get 3.5 in the end? I can't remember.
We looked for it. 3.5. We got a good price.
It was $1.79, I think.
Yes, a good price.
So we won't take
on the
anything under $1.80.
We're taking the Jets +3 at $1.97. That's Unibet. As Jacob said, I think you can get +3.5 at like $1.79. Whether that's much better, it probably isn't, to be honest. 18 cents for the half point, Jacob. Would you? You probably wouldn't actually do that.
I've seen that half point be valued as high as 20 cents, especially in a low total. So it's probably comparable. We would have, if we got $1.80, we would have taken plus 3.5.
Yeah. So whether you want to take that one or the $1.79 for the plus 3.5, that's completely up to you. And we're going to take the Jets team total over 20.5. That one is $1.83 on Bet365.
Just to add to that, the stats will say that a favourite of 3 points will win by exactly 3 about 10% of the time. So the difference between taking plus 3 or plus 3.5, you'll win like 10% of the time more with the 3.5.
Right.
But the other, 45% hopefully that you're going to win as well, you're sacrificing 17, 18 cents. So that's the trade-off.
Yeah, absolutely right. Moving on to the Steelers laying 6.5 points away at the Bengals. 38.5 points is the total. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. I think the Steelers should get the win. They should be motivated. They're 5-5, and after a horrific performance last week by the Steelers and Mason Rudolph, multiple picks. What better game to get your confidence back than against the Bengals, one of the worst defenses in the league. But I don't think I'm comfortable laying 6.5 away from home.
Yeah, it's tough. There's a few trends that will tell you that the value is on the winless team, and that's because they're winless, so the average Joe in the public doesn't want his money on that shitty team that loses every single week. But often they are actually still motivated because they don't want to put up a goose egg for the season, and they don't want to go down in history. Only 2 or 3 teams ever, I think, have had a winless season. So that's why you might like the Bengals, and they have a chance because Pittsburgh don't score many points. I mean, James Conner's injured. Juju Smith-Schuster's out, most likely. Mason Rudolph's terrible. Marquise Pouncey, an important O-lineman, he got suspended, retaliating to what Myles Garrett did. He's gonna get a couple games out. So there's reasons to believe in the Bengals. But in the Steelers, you've got just a proud team that started the season, I think, 1-4, lost their QB, and still went all in with their trades. Still believes they can make the playoffs because they're now, 5-5?
5-5.
They're
well
at the very least, does not accept a losing record. And if you're going to even get close to the playoffs, this is the kind of game you just absolutely have to win. And I've got no faith in the Bengals, to be honest. I don't have faith in the coach. I don't have faith in Finley. So Pittsburgh could easily win this game by a touchdown. So we didn't end up playing the game.
And the Bengals are the only winless team left on the board, so they do have incentive to keep losing and get that number 1 draft pick.
Especially with that likely to be this guy Joe Burrows, the QB at LSU. If you follow college football, number 1 ranked LSU that flogged Alabama the other day. And he's from the state of Ohio, so it could be a perfect fit, like the hometown kind of kid to come in and be the savior.
Perfect. Moving on to the Seahawks, +1 at the Philly Eagles. 47.5 points is the total. I really like the Eagles here. Same sort of point that Jacob mentioned before in terms of the Oakland game. You have the Seahawks traveling across country to Philly. Much different weather in Seattle as it is in Philadelphia, especially later on in the season where it is getting a little bit chillier. The Seahawks defense is not as good as it was in prior years. They are well below average. I think they ranked the 22nd worst defense in the league. And Philly, everyone was laughing about their secondary. They were horrific at the start of the season. You could just pass all over them. But they have gotten healthier. And now this Philly defense is actually an above-average defense. They went toe-to-toe with the Pats. It took an Edelman pass to Dorsett to beat them last week. And even so, they only gave up 17 points. And they've only given up 3 passing touchdowns in the last 4 games, this Philadelphia side. And that's a secondary that everyone was heaping shit on for the entire first half of the season. Seahawks, as we know, run the ball as much as anyone in the league. They run the ball, I think, 56% of the time. And what do we know about this Eagles team? Their strength is their run defense, so I think they match up well there. The Eagles, I really thought that this line would come out at 3. I actually think, there's a lot of reasons to like the Eagles here, and at the short line, we have to take them.
Yeah, we haven't bet against Seattle many times this year. We've really liked the Seattle team, especially I've really liked, obviously Russell Wilson putting together MVP, quality season.
Lamar.
He's in the discussion. Obviously, yeah, Lamar, we're going to
He's
get
just
to the
running away
Ravens,
from
is ahead.
Yeah.
They picked up Clowney, and finally that showed what a great pickup that was. They got him for 1 year. He basically won them that game against the 49ers, and that's a huge win, emotional win, keeps them in the running to win that division. And then they get a bye, and I don't like betting against them because I know they're a really good team, well-coached team. But Philly played a good game. That was a pretty 50-50 game against the Pats, and there's no disgrace in losing, a one-score game to the Pats. And
this is 3 drives to tie it.
Yeah, exactly. And this is do or die, I reckon, for Philly. Especially Dallas pulls out another win last week. Philly needs to keep within a game of Dallas. Philly was the preseason favourites in the NFC East.
Yep.
They keep it within a game. They will play Dallas in Philadelphia later in the year, and that could be for all the marbles. And Philly's still got a quality roster. Don't forget they won the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. And at home, they're the kind of team that does keep it, trickle to up their sleeve. I think that they can bring it. I think they can win this one.
Yeah, 100%. We've got 3 best bets on this one. We're taking the Eagles just to win the match, $1.86 on Unibet. We're taking the Eagles to win the first half. That one is $1.84 on BetEasy. It's called Draw No Bet, so make sure you look for that one. If it is a tied at halftime, you get your money back. And we're going to take the Eagles team total over 23.5 points. That one is $1.80 on Bet365. Moving on to the Bucks, plus 4 points at the Atlanta Falcons. 51.5 points is the total. Well, the Bucks, they obviously lost last week to the Saints. They put in a decent performance, but the Saints were always in control of that one. But what people are talking about here is the Falcons. I tend to disagree with the media where they say that this Falcons team has somehow turned their defense around from one of the bottom 5 defenses to one of the top 5 defenses in the last 2 weeks. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think, it's probably a combination of factors. 1, they got a win on the board 2 weeks ago, a bit more confident last week against the Panthers. 2, Kyle Allen was just fucking horrific last week against them. 5, they sacked him 5 times and he threw 4 picks. And that game could have been a lot different. I mean, Kyle Allen threw, I think, 2 red zone interceptions. So certainly the Falcons win against the Panthers looks impressive. But probably their defense isn't as impressive as people are making them out to be. But I do really like the Falcons in this spot, not only because we have 2 teams that shouldn't care. The Bucks, have nothing to play for, and the Falcons have nothing to play for. Neither of them are making the playoffs. But the Falcons have a win streak to play for. They've won 2 in a row now. They're going for 3 in a row from what has been a terrible season. And the matchup is great. The Bucks still have the best run defense in the league. And you know who runs the ball less than anyone else? The Falcons. They love to throw the ball, and the Bucks cannot defend the pass. And you know what else? The Falcons at home, when they're at home, their pass percentage goes up 15% from their average, from 60% to 75% at home. Whether that's Matt Ryan feeling more comfortable passing it at home, I don't know. But I think it's just a great matchup for the Falcons at home with confidence. I think they should be able to get the job done here.
Yeah, I mean, the Falcons play in the Georgia Dome too, so any dome team usually can play with completely controlled weather conditions. Yeah, it's easier to move the ball in a dome. Falcons are a crazy team because 14-point underdogs against the Saints completely shocked them, beat them by, I think, 16. So you're beating the spread by 30. And then last week they were, it actually closed 3.5, say a 3.5, 4-point underdog, and won that game by about 26. Crazy. So you beat the spread by 30 again. Like that's unheard of. So it's hard to predict what they're going to bring now. I think I think that the changes they've made since the bye week are that extreme. I think, as you say, there's other factors. But still, they're playing well, they're playing confident, and you can always move the ball with Matty Ice and Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley there. So we think that they can score. The Bucks don't know if they can stop the Falcons, but hey, they've still got Jameis. They're still allowing him to fling it around the field, and he's always good for a couple of turnovers, but he does move the ball. He's got weapon receivers to fling it to as well. So I think this game will be higher scoring. I know the Falcons haven't conceded a touchdown the last 2 weeks. I think that changes, but I also think Falcons will be too good. I think that Tampa Bay, after a lot of close and emotional games, might be worn out.
Yeah, and generally when you're worn out, your defense suffers more than your offense. So we've got 3 plays on this one. We're taking the Falcons team total over 27.5 points. That one's $1.92 on Neds and Lads. We're taking the Falcons laying 2.5 points in the first half. That's $1.91 on BetEasy. We're going to take the Falcons team total over 13.5 points in the first half. That's $1.87 on Unibet. Moving on to the Jacksonville Jags, plus 3 points at the Tennessee Titans. 41.5 points is the total. I like the Titans here. I think they're probably the slightly better team here. And they also have something to play for. They're 5-5. They're still in the playoff hunt. The Jags are not. Plus, you've got the Titans coming off the bye. Late in the season, I think that's more of an advantage than getting the bye earlier in the season. So I think it helps to rest some tired legs, some injuries, get, all that kind of stuff later in the season. And not only that, I think the matchup is good for the Titans. The Jags generally, want to run the ball a lot. The Titans can stop the run. The Jags cannot stop the run. They are number 30 against the run out of all teams in the NFL. And what do we know about the Titans? They want to fucking run the ball. So I think it's a good matchup. You've got a team off the bye, at home, hungrier, more to play for, and you're only laying 3 points. I'll take the Titans here.
Yeah, so we got -3, but most bookies have this at 3.5, and
look around.
That is key. We talked about that before, but I agree. I think these teams are pretty even in terms of ability. You got Nick Foles back, under center at Jacksonville, and it was a terrible return last week, and they got thumped, and we were on the receiving end there. But generally, that's still an upgrade. Even though Minshew Mania was fun, you still prefer Foles, and he wants to prove himself as well, and prove his big money deal, and prove he's the right guy to, to be the QB for the next few years and serve out that
Minshew
contract.
back in there.
And the Jags coach Marone, probably needs a good finish to the season to keep his job too. But it is questionable motivation because it's a bit of a lost season. You traded your best player and Jalen Ramsey. Whereas for the Titans, they just beat the Chiefs in a massive home game, and they got lucky. They had way less yards. They won the turnover battle. The Chiefs missed a couple field goals late in that game. I think they're going to the bye at 5-5 with a lot of belief, saying, "Look what we can do," but not overconfident because they do know they were lucky and they do know that it's still going to take a number of good performances to get in the playoff hunt. But even that division, and we just saw, we saw two teams from that division play today. Yep. In the Colts and the Texans, and this is the other two sides in the AFC South. That division is not, wrapped up yet. So heaps to play for the Titans. And I talked about the fact that Foles is back in and that improves the Jags offense. Well, the Titans have improved their offense too by changing QB about 3 or 4 weeks ago in dumping Mariota and bringing in Tannehill. And the stats just show that Tannehill is just playing at such a better level than Mariota. So you've upgraded both QBs. But the season-long stats don't reflect that because they've played with, a lesser QB. So for that reason, this total's probably a little bit lower than it should be. I think it goes over the 41.5.
Yeah, before I get to the best bets, you make a great point about the lucky win. Because generally in betting, if we have a team that has a lucky win where they shouldn't have won the week before, usually we try and fade that team. Because obviously they won, they shouldn't have. They're going to be a little bit overvalued the week after. But I think in this case, it's a good thing. You have a lucky win to get to 5-5 and keep your playoff hopes alive. I think that's a great thing heading into the bye. I think if the Titans would have lost a close game against the Chiefs there, they would have been demoralized heading into the bye 4-6, and I think it's just a much better situation here for them. So we're taking 3 best bets. We're taking the Titans laying 3 points. That is $1.86 on Unibet. We're going to take the over 40.5 for the game. That's $1.86 on Unibet as well. And we're going to take the Titans team total over 22.5 points. That is $1.92 on Unibet.
It just made me think, just random, I'll just throw this at you, right? You're a former professional tennis player, right?
Yeah,
so the close win or lucky win theory, and the logic being that it was epic and you poured it all out, but you got the win. So then you kind of re-energize. So if you were playing an epic tennis match, and it's juice or whatever, and you played some epic 20-shot rally back and forth, and you won that point. How good are you feeling for that next point coming off the win? But you're both tired, you and your opponent.
I'm more tired than them.
But don't you get a little bit of a lift once you win that really epic close one?
You do,
as opposed to a letdown.
Oh no, 100%. And it's like those ones where you have an epic rally, and one of you hits the fucking net cord and it dribbles over to save break point or something. I remember doing that and feeling great for the next point. And I remember being on the receiving end of that and being like, well, that's fucked.
It's a letdown.
Now I am
it's just
gonna
hard
lose
to bring
game.
yourself up to that level again after
100%.
trying your best and failing. So, that's why, although it's counterintuitive because you might say it's a phony final score,
Right.
that they get that confidence from winning the close one.
100%. No, you're absolutely right. Let's move on to the Cowboys plus 6.5 points. These last 3 games are absolute crackers. Cowboys plus 6.5 points at the Pats. 45.5 points is the total. I just don't know what to do with this game. It's a funny game, this one. I heard today that neither of these teams has been an underdog in the betting markets this whole season until today, until this weekend, obviously, where the Cowboys are 6.5 point underdogs. Total 45.5 points. Don't really know what to do with that either. As we know, the Patriots defense has been the best in the league this season, and they continue to just dominate. I mean, not a comprehensive victory over the Eagles, but did you watch that game, Jacob? It seemed 17-10. There was a lot of time left, and most teams would try their best to just kind of drive down the field and get the 3 points and get the win. It seemed like the Pats had complete faith in their defense. They were not trying anything out of the ordinary. I think they had a couple of 3-out and punts, just giving the ball straight back to Philly, and I felt they had complete confidence in their defense there to hold on to the 7-point lead. So we know that the Cowboys aren't going to be able to do too much against this Patriots side. On the flip side, this Cowboys offense has been completely legit. And their defense has been subpar. We saw what happened, last week against the Lions. But you have to look back, over the last month, I think every single game the Cowboys have played have been pretty much shootouts. So, look, I think if we said to ourselves if we could get a 7 on this one, we'd probably take the Cowboys, but we couldn't find one. So, no play for now.
Yeah, that Patriots-Eagles game was well and truly a defensive battle. In the end, they win the game by a touchdown thrown by Julian Edelman. They had
Crazy.
to reach into the bag of tricks to pull that win out. The key matchup here is the awesome Patriots defense against this Cowboys offense, which I reckon is really good. And I think the only
100%.
games where they haven't played well, you can excuse because they had cluster injuries on the O-line and at receiver.
Yep.
Dak Prescott playing a really high level. It's quite funny when you think preseason there were these contract holdouts and fights, and Dak wants a new big deal, and they're saying, oh, we don't have to extend your contract yet, show us. And Zeke wants a new big deal. They're saying we don't have to. And Zeke held out, and they overpaid Zeke, and he really hasn't been that great this year. And they haven't paid Dak, and now he's probably played himself, probably get an extra $5 or $10 million a year.
100%.
When they do kind of give him that deal.
You see what Goff got paid.
Yeah, exactly. That sets the market. And hey, he deserves it the way that he twists those hips. He can rip the ball, and he's getting it to, getting it to his wide receivers. They're making great catches. Amari Cooper seems to have like 3 sideline tiptoe catches every week. And so I have faith they can move the ball. The Cowboys defense, maybe that's up for discussion because in my mind it's a good team, but the stats will say that they're a below average defense. Now the Pats have struggled on offense too, so there's no guarantee they'll light them up. So you're right, like honestly, I still have belief that the Cowboys can make noise in the playoffs and that it's not outrageous. This could end up being a Super Bowl. So I really think it'll be a great game. That's why if I was going to play it, I'd take the points. But 6.5 isn't enough to take Dallas at Foxborough.
Yeah, not yet. And we'll see if the public comes in for the Pats, because they generally do. But in this game, the Cowboys are one of the most public teams in the NFL as well. So we're not quite sure where that line will go. Next up, absolute cracker for Sunday Night Football. They flexed this one in here. Packers +3 at the 49ers. 47.5 points is the total. I think I like the Packers here. Actually, I know I like the Packers. I know that the 49ers are 9-1 this season. They have been absolutely unstoppable. But and we've seen, obviously the run game has slowed down a little bit as of late. I know that everyone kind of thought that the run game was just absolutely unstoppable during that first half of the season, but it has slowed down after the last few games. I still am fucking extremely bitter on the 49ers. They get the 10-point win over the Cardinals last week, but it is a little bit of a phony 10-point win. Obviously, they're up 4 points, and it took a last second on the very last play, fumble recovery for a touchdown to get to the 10-point lead. I will say that cost me $17,000, that single play there. So I'm still bitter on the 49ers. That's not why I'm going against them this week. I think the Packers are dead set the better team. They have had a lot of injuries throughout the season. Devontae Adams was out for a while. But look, Aaron Rodgers is playing better than ever. You're coming off the bye. I think that they will be able to game plan a bit better for this 49ers team off the bye. I think it is a great advantage to have a bye late in the season in week 11 than it is you can rest all those, little niggles and stuff. And Devontae Adams still struggling with his toe. You get an extra week to prepare. On the flip side, the 49ers had their bye in week 4. So they have played since week 4 without having a bye. I think that's a disadvantage for them. Not only that, you've still got George Kittle injured. You've still got Deebo Samuel injured. Both of them limited practice in non-contact jerseys. But still, that's the first time that George Kittle has practiced since the end of October. That's over 3 weeks' time. So even if he is good to go in this one, I don't think he's going to be 100%. We've got a pretty much fully strength Packers team coming in here. I think they're the better team off the bye. And it's going to be a great game, but I think the Packers can get it done here.
And not to bring up your multi that lost, but it's probably worth mentioning because we actually had 49ers minus 9.5. Actually, the best bet wins thanks to the most ridiculous final play you'll ever see where, there's 1 or 2 seconds left in the Arizona because they're down 4. They got to keep the ball alive, but they're not moving the ball 80 yards. But the ball hits the ground like 3 different times, and an Arizona player dives on it and actually scoops it and throws it back in field, and the 49ers pick it up. But you had a same-game multi where actually by taking the underdog with a combination with player props,
I didn't like the Cardinals. It was just
you played kind of an overs the odds, and you really had that game won, and you should have won. That sucks.
Thank you.
And it seems to happen to us a lot more often than the other way around. Now, I also make the case with the 49ers, as much as I kind of admire the way they've played, are they overrated? Because you look at some of the signature wins they had this year, like a Monday Night Football where they destroyed the Browns. That doesn't look that impressive now. The Browns kind of had a bit of turmoil, and the Browns aren't as good as we thought they were a month into the season. They smashed the Panthers. Yeah, but now the Panthers probably don't look as good as they looked a month ago either, especially Kyle Allen's shortcomings being seen. And then they lost to the Seahawks as well. So it's like, maybe they're not as good as we think. And you mentioned a few of the guys that are out as well. Joe Staley might be the best O-lineman on the team. Don't think he's playing in this one. I like the Packers. I think getting 2 weeks to come into this game, they will have some good game plans, some good plays to allow them to move the ball. So I like the Packers as well in this one. I think Aaron Rodgers grew up a 49ers fan or in the area and got, that's a team he remembers getting snubbed by back when he was drafted.
I like it.
I feel like there's always that little bit of spice when he plays the Niners. So I think this is going to be a cracking Sunday Night Football game. And to get the 3 and a hook, love playing the Packers here.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the prevalent line is the 3, so make sure you shop around. We have shopped around for you, and we've found the Packers plus 3.5 at $1.87 on BetEasy. And we're also going to take the Packers plus half a point in the first quarter. That is $1.80 on Bet365. And to round it out, Monday Night Football, the Ravens minus 3 points at the LA Rams. 46.5 points is the total. This is going to go against what anyone in the group thinks. I saw a lot of posts a few days ago, take the Ravens early at that 3.5 price. But I think the Rams are certainly the sharp side here. I know we get the Ravens coming off one of their biggest wins of the season, and I think the worst loss that Deshaun Watson has had in his entire career. I think that's the only... I think they said something like it's the only double-digit loss that Deshaun Watson has had in his entire career.
Since high school.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Since high school, even in college. Yeah. Jesus, that is pretty crazy. So everyone is riding high on the Ravens, and rightly so. They have been probably playing the best football in the NFL as of late, but I think they're probably riding a little bit too high. The Texans just got down in a hole early in that game. I think it could have, and it just snowballed from there. I think it could have gone a lot differently. Maybe I'm crazy. I think it could have gone a lot differently if they overturned that non-touchdown call, or if they gave that pass interference call in the end zone to the Texans when it was still 0-0. I think they would have scored there. Anyway.
Well, actually, on that point, that was such a bad call. That was absolutely horrible. And what I hate about it as well is that the Texans have driven the ball. They're in kind of no man's land, like around the 40. It's just too long to kick a field goal. If you punt, you're only going to flip field position by 25 yards, right? So they go for it all or nothing. It's the world's most blatant pass interference call you've ever witnessed, right? He gets mugged in the end zone. Who was it? Hopkins, right?
Hopkins, yeah.
Gets mugged in the end zone. Every man and his dog and Blind Freddy sees it's pass interference. No flag. I'm bewildered there's no flag. But luckily, in 2019, you can challenge pass interference. And even though we know that they never overturn it, even like we're watching Red Zone, Scott Hansen's like, oh, they'll overturn that one. All the commentators going, yeah, that's pretty blatant. And then just shocked that paid officials can watch the replay and see a receiver just tackled well before the ball's anywhere near him and not call the pass interference. So what's the point of having that rule? I mean, would they have even overturned the one in New Orleans that caused the rule in the first place?
Exactly.
If they're not overturning, and they lost by 20 or more. So not saying that cost them the game, but you instantly went from you would have had the ball at the 1, so you're going to score a touchdown, to instantly Ravens ball at midfield.
And the Ravens just demoralization for the team.
Yeah. And the Ravens then actually scored back-to-back touchdowns. So call it a 14-point play or maybe a 21-point play by the official, I don't know, blacking out and not making that call. So it was a bad one.
It's unbelievable, and I know that the rule says it has to be clear and obvious. You cannot get more clear and obvious than that one. That is the most clear and obvious pass interference call I've seen all year that's gone to challenge. Anyway, Rams here at home. They're catching points. I know that this is the ugly team to take, but you get a little bit of confidence coming off that Bears win last week. I know that they didn't look great, but the Bears defense is pretty legit. But I like the fact that they're trying to feed Todd Gurley a little bit more. They fed the shit out of him. I think they fucking had 22 out of the first 28 plays last week were run plays. And I think that's going to be a good thing in this case, because I know that people rave on about the Ravens defense. They still have the 25th best rush defense in the NFL. So I think you're going to be able to run on them, and I think it's good that they fed Gurley last week. I think that they won't go away from that game plan this week. In terms of the matchup for the Ravens, we all know that they're a very run-heavy team. They love to run the ball with Ingram, Lamar. And the Rams are a top 5 defense, number 3 against the run. So I think they match up pretty well there. The Rams might be getting healthier this week. You get Robert Woods, who was away on personal reasons last week. He's back practicing, so he should be back there. But I think you just got to hold your nose and take the ugly duckling here, as we always do every NRL season. And we've won 5 NRL seasons in a row. It's a tried and true method. You take the home dog, the ugly home dog, against the team that's hotter than anything and everyone wants to bet on. Just hold your nose and take the Rams here.
And I've gone a little tangent as well, because you mentioned Deshaun Watson, and we have Lamar Jackson, who's playing MVP level. I don't think he's wrapped it up yet. I guess if the Seahawks run the table,
though, right?
He is well and truly favourite. In fact, I heard today PointsBet have already paid out MVP bets. So when you got bookies paying it out, but realistically, I mean, yeah, he's probably better than odds-on favourite. He's been amazing. And I want to ask the question, he's drafted 32nd in a league where quarterback is the most important position in sports. And Deshaun Watson drafted 12th. We've said this a few weeks in a row. That's the same draft that Mitch Trubisky goes number 2. My question is, Deshaun Watson won the Heisman. That's best player in all of college football. Lamar Jackson won the Heisman. These aren't unknown guys that played at a lower tier college that people didn't realize they were going to be so good. There was so much tape on these guys. You had Deshaun Watson beat Alabama in a national championship game, and yet these teams didn't take him seriously. And all these teams, every team in the NFL passed on these guys and didn't believe it. I don't understand that. What did you see from these guys being the best player in college that made you think they wouldn't be good at the NFL level? So it's strange. But he's playing amazing. That's why the Ravens are a favourite on the road here. Also, their defense has been seem to be playing really well. We've got a dog barking. That always means take the dog. But I don't totally believe in the Ravens defense. It's the same defense that was not that great last year, and they've lost CJ Mosley. And I think that they've gotten out to leads against opponents, and then they've gotten their opponent out of the game plan they wanted to play. The opponent's chasing points, has made mistakes. Ravens have just got a few extra turnovers that you don't quite sustain. For the Rams, you said you like the fact they fed Gurley, but I don't think that was necessarily the best way they could have played offense. I think that was situational. They were playing the Bears, and they were literally we only need 10 points to win this game. Literally the only way we will lose is if we turn the ball over, and they did throw an early pick, and they went vanilla as And that's why
Which
I believe
should
they
help
can
them
play.
in this game, I think.
But I believe they can definitely play better on offense. As you say, like
agree.
Robert Woods coming back in, you might not think that moves the needle, but Cooks is already out for the season. So that was a big loss to have multiple wide receivers out. So him coming back will make a big difference.
Yep.
I still believe a little bit in Goff. We joked before about his contract. Like, that's a disaster, but he's still a decent QB. McVay is an above-average coach, so I think they can come in with a game plan. And let's bring it full circle. We talked about West Coast teams traveling east, playing early time slot. The body clock, it's very early. Well, here we got the complete opposite effect. On a Monday Night Football, we got East Coast or Eastern time zone team coming West Coast to play the latest possible start on a Monday Night Football. By the time that game gets in the fourth quarter, for them, it's like past midnight on their body clock. So, in fact, even to 1 or 2 a.m., depending how long the game goes. That is also a factor that it's hard to perform at your physical best. I mean, you've not performed at your physical best, I'm sure, in the past at like 1 a.m. in certain situations.
Yeah. No, I haven't. Absolutely not.
So,
and nothing good happens after midnight, tell you that.
And I really believe in the Rams defense too. You got Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey there, so that's going to help them stick in this game too. Don't even need them to win it when we're getting plus 3.5.
Yeah, 100%. We're taking the Rams plus 3.5 points. That one is $1.88 on Unibet. We're going to take the Ravens under 26 points. That is $1.83 in the BetEasy three-way market. And we're also going to take the Rams team total over 20.5 points. That is $1.80 on Bet365. And that is going to wrap it. I think we had 24 best bets for this week. Obviously, we will be at the races tomorrow. So if you are there, feel free to say g'day. We will be there at Doomben. Yep, at the Doomben Tattersall Race Day. We will be there tomorrow, heading there with a few blokes from the pod. So that should be a bit of fun. If you see us, come and say g'day. But thanks again for tuning in, guys. A different, obviously, time slot Friday. Let us know if you like this one better than the Saturday time slot. We can always change it, but had to mix this one up because we were headed to the races tomorrow. It's going to be a bit squashy, but thanks once again for tuning in. Jacob, anything you want to add to try and add some luck to this weekend's best bets?
I just think thanks to everyone who's still listening. If you've listened to all this, even with the results, the best bet result, then you are a true fan. So I hope we're rewarding you with some good insight. But we want to add the winners on top of the insight. And I think every week I believe we're going to turn it around. And I feel really confident. We're not like trying to push it too hard to try and win it all back, as I said at the start. But we're grabbing every play that we believe is a 55% plus winner. And the tide will turn in our favour if we keep putting in the work.
100%. And to be fair, if you have been listening to us, you have probably been getting on our multis, and you've been crushing it on those ones. So, look, stick with it. We're still actually, surprisingly enough, up on units for this season, despite being down on the best bet. So, look, guys, thanks once again for tuning in on the different time slot, and good luck on your bets this week. Good luck on your NFL bets. Good luck on your NBA bets. And if you are betting on the horsies tomorrow, good luck on that as well. And look, we will catch you guys probably Saturday. Look, next Saturday at 10 a.m. unless things change. If they do change, we'll let you know in the Tripod group and in the Tripod app. Thanks again for tuning in, guys. See you then.